good morning, everyone. Today, I'm joined by Dean Harriette Hemmasi, the Dean of our library. And Harriette, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us for this conversation. And let me express on behalf of our entire community, our appreciation to you and to our colleagues at the library who have done extraordinary work in supporting our community in this virtual learning environment. It's a real pleasure to be able to spend this time with you today. So let's begin. In your distinguished career, you've served at 4 major research universities: Rutgers, Indiana University in Bloomington, Brown University, and now here at Georgetown. Can you offer a few words on the role of libraries in an academic community like Georgetown and as a resource to our faculty and our students?
Thank you so much for that question, President DeGioia. And I will say that, you know, a term that was used in the past to describe libraries, that it was the heart of the university. I'm not sure if that term still applies in maybe the way it once did, but I will say that libraries are an integral part of the academic enterprise of any university. The ways in which staff in the library partner with faculty, with students, and with the larger university community, meaning alums very often, of bringing people together, bringing both the study and the practice of the academic mission into more reality. And just the one example that I'll give right here is students go into the classroom, some of them extremely prepared, others less prepared. Faculty do their very best, do outstanding job in the classroom and today online. But then there is learning that occurs outside the classroom. And I often think of the library as an extension of the classroom, an extension even of the dorm. The library is both a scholarly place and a social place. Students really merge their lives, their social lives and their learning lives in ways that I think the library is very well suited to provide space for them and provide an open, neutral environment for them to study and learn. And so I think that maybe the most important part of the library is being a partner on campus and providing a sense of connection.
For those who, it may have been some time since they visited the library, could you provide a sense of the size of our library collections, the kinds of materials and resources that we're particularly able to provide to our community?
Yes, I'm glad to talk about this, and I'll begin by saying that the main campus does have several libraries, including Lounger, the Woodstock Theological Library, which is located within Lounger, and then the Science Library. But you know well that there are 2 other important libraries at Georgetown, the Law Library, which is downtown on the campus, as well as the Medical Library on our main campus, but serving a very intensely different kind of clientele. And you know, we partner together on a number of things, but there are really differences. So my comments will be focused just on the main campus libraries. In total, we have close to 4 million items. There are well over 3 million printed volumes, and then hundreds of thousands of electronic materials that we subscribe to, over 60,000 journals in electronic form. I mean, this is hard really to fathom, so many journals and databases. And then of course, special collections, which has not only rare books, manuscripts, and archives both of the history of the university and archives that relate to Many of, for example, the Maryland Province archives are located at Georgetown. And our goal is to provide access to these materials, even today when the many students and faculty are unable to come onto campus, to provide access to these materials as much as possible. And of course, we do a lot of digitization when it's legal, and we make those materials available as a resource to teaching, to learning, and to research.
Sure. Maybe we can go a little bit deeper in talking about this, development of the library over the years, the digital research resources and co-curricular learning opportunities that are offered by our library, including our Georgetown Maker Hub. Can you share some of the ways in which the library has provided new opportunities for learning and research, and how do you see this work continuing to evolve in the future?
I think it's really interesting. This year is the 50th anniversary of Lowinger. And even when Lowinger was first built in 1970, there was a media center in the library. And I'm not sure it was called media necessarily, but anyway.
I think we might have called it audio-visual.
There we go. But the concept of the library being part of, I don't know if we could call audiovisual cutting edge, but anyway, the library has really maintained the pace of different types of teaching and research technologies, and that is true today. Some of the tools that we use, the ability for students and faculty to explore, for example, geographic information systems, so digital mapping, digital storytelling. Just this summer, we had a student who worked with the archive to create a digital story about the slavery archive. And this work had been begun a couple of years ago with Adam Rothman and some of his students, but this particular student just was visiting Georgetown this summer, and she asked if she could have access. And so this is a really wonderful opportunity. I think the other thing that is really essential is the ways in which we are understanding as a culture how people learn. So yes, linear work, such as writing books, writing essays, and so on, has been very important in the development of scholarship. But we know that visualizing our ideas and also putting those ideas into action has been extremely relevant. And we see that in child's play, that they want to build things. And I think one of the great things that has happened at Georgetown and across many other academic libraries is this concept of a maker space. And in many ways, the library has always been a maker space, but it's dealt with intellectual ideas and turning those thoughts into words. And today, we are able to turn thoughts into designs, prototypes, and ultimately products. I just wanted, if I may, give one small example. This occurred before I came to Georgetown. It was from 2017, but it was a student who was a senior in the School of Foreign Service. He didn't have any science background, but he was taking a biology class. And he was very interested that the professor showed some examples of all of the tests that have to happen for medical tests, which none of us want to know about, but we do have to learn. And the student noticed that there was no test available for the small intestine. And he began thinking about if you could swallow a pill that would collect the dirt, I guess, in your small intestine, and then be able to tell the doctors, okay, this is what is inside my intestine. And he developed this, and it is now going to make a medical device, a product. Uh, and this is the work that he did in the Maker Hub, both the thinking about that, so the idea lab, the concept of design thinking, design going into making. So I think this is putting research into action.
Thank you for sharing that wonderful story with us. Now, we've been in a virtual learning environment now since mid-March. How has this focus on digital transformation helped prepare the library for this moment? And can you talk a little bit about some of the work now that the library is engaged in supporting our virtual learning environment?
Yes, well, we know that libraries have been living in kind of a hybrid world for a number of years. Today, around 80% of our collections budget is spent on acquiring online access to resources. We do still buy some books, but you can see how the balance has really shifted to online. And it's been also during this time that we have developed online services. One of the things that we know is that students work at all hours, especially hours that normally we might not be in the library or maybe even awake. But they have very much benefited from being able to text or chat with librarians at any time from any place. And so these types of services have really translated very smoothly into the current environment. One of the things that we began doing last spring was, if we did not have access, online access to materials that students wanted, we would try to scan the materials themselves and then send the scan. So we might have the printed book, but the students and faculty weren't on campus. And so we're continuing that practice this fall, especially for undergraduate students who may be working on thesis or other kinds of special projects, senior projects, graduate students especially, and also faculty. So digitizing and sending whenever we can do this in a legal manner.
Sure.
And so I think the important thing is that we continue to provide the services that students and faculty look for.
A moment ago, you mentioned our special collections, and you are helping to lead a team in an initiative supported by the Mellon Foundation to develop a digital framework for archival materials related to the history of slavery at American colleges and universities. Could you share with us a little bit about this project and its goals?
Well, I'm very excited about the project, and you may know that the project was actually begun by a faculty member at Michigan State University, Sharon Leon, who, by the way, is a Georgetown alum. And Sharon had done some research in the library here at Georgetown as a faculty fellow, visiting fellow, looking at the slavery archive. And she introduced this proposal to me and several other folks, Adam Rothman, our own faculty member here at Georgetown, who Sharon knows professionally. And we began to talk about the ways in which right now it's not possible to look across the archives of the different institutions and to understand, you can understand them individually, but how do you understand the connections and the continuations of the story, the themes? And one of the ideas is, you know, a lot of times when we study archives, we look at individual people, we look at their names, we look at their lineage, we look at where they lived, and so on. But one of the really important things about this project is to look at the events in their lives and in the lives of the institutions. What was happening? What is characteristic, not just at Georgetown, but across many other institutions that would help us understand the lived realities? Now, we know that most of these archives were not written by enslaved people. They were written by folks in the institution who were in positions of authority and so on. But in any case, we see the records, because the records do reveal. And I think one of the great things about research today, especially digital research, is that we can allow and enable the archive to speak for itself. And this is a really fabulous opportunity and advancement for research and understanding about this particular period of our history.
Thank you. And thank you for taking this time today to be with us and to share your perspective, your reflections. And we're very fortunate to have you in position of leadership here at Georgetown. In closing, is there one last message you'd like to leave with the members of our community as we start this new fall semester?
Well, I think the most important thing that I can say is that the library is here for students and faculty, and for you, President DeGioia, in whatever way that we may be able to assist and to help get us through this crisis and to continue to grow beyond this.
Thank you. I want to express my appreciation to Dean Harriette Hemmasi for sharing her insights with us today. And I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I look forward to being with all of you again soon. Take care of yourselves and take care of everyone around you. For every Hoya, everywhere.